When you hear the words automotive innovation, what comes to mind? Maybe it's an American car company, way out of its depth, getting disrespected, then turning around and beating the Europeans at their own game. Not just once, but by building one of the greatest race cars ever made. Or maybe it's a small German design firm who took a mass market commuter car with its engine in the wrong place, stretched it out, and somehow turned it into one of the most dominant, best-selling sports cars in history, a platform that's now the benchmark throughout the industry. But when you hear the word Africa, what comes to mind? Let's be honest. For most people, it's poverty, child soldiers, dictators, Ebola. For the slightly more informed, maybe Afrobeats, jollof rice, soccer, Mandela, maybe Wakanda. But for me, Africa and automotive innovation were never in the same mental zip code, city, or state. And yet, to my surprise, they should have been. Because Africa, she's got a lot more going for it than zebras and war. Quietly, behind the noise, the continent is home to a handful of ambitious car startups. Companies taking real swings, assembling, designing, and in some cases, even building from the ground up. They're not all there yet, but they're moving. Let's dive in. Africa imports more used vehicles than almost any region on Earth. Nigeria alone trails only the United States, making it one of the busiest second-hand markets in the world. Between 1994 and 2024, African countries spent over $500 billion on used imports. For context, that's more than Netflix's total market cap, which explains why they keep raising your subscription cost. It's twice the GDP of New Zealand and enough to buy a GT2 RS every single day for 4,566 years. It's a lot. Drive through any major African city, Johannesburg, Accra, Lagos, and the roads are packed. Benzes, Beamers, Hondas, Hyundais, Porsches, Peugeots. What you won't see? Many cars built there. As a 90s baby, car craze from the womb, growing up in America, I had no awareness of this. I grew up on bench seats and in Detroit iron. I remember being 4 years old, drowning in the plush blue backseat of my mom's 1990 Chrysler Caravan, barely able to see out of the window. But when I did manage to climb up and take a peek out of that fishbowl, I'd see rolling Americana everywhere. SN95 Mustangs, Catfish Camaros, Dodge Rams. That was normal, and I never thought to appreciate it until I started traveling. And that's when it hit me. It's not like this everywhere. So I asked myself, is it really true? Are there no African car brands? And like the famous Gin Rummy said in the Boondocks, an absence of evidence is not evidence of absence.
Simply because you don't have evidence that something does exist does not mean that you have evidence that something doesn't exist.
Just because I hadn't seen them didn't mean they weren't there. So I dug, and I found 5 visionaries, 5 brands doing what most wouldn't even dare, building roads where none existed. Let's meet them. Our first stop, Nigeria. A West African giant with over 220 million people, known for setting global music trends, Nollywood blockbusters, and let's be honest, the best jollof rice on the planet. That's not a joke. That's a fact. But what most people don't know is that Nigeria is also home to not one, but 2 of the continent's most promising automotive startups. Let's start with Innoson Vehicle Motors, or IVM. The company was founded in 2010 by Mr. Innocent Chukwuma, a man whose story reads like the blueprint for grassroots industrialism. He got his start in the late 70s, maybe early 80s, still in high school, trading spare motorcycle parts in eastern Nigeria. Hondas, Suzukis, Chinese off-brands, whatever moved. After years in the hustle, he spotted a pattern. People weren't buying new bikes. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford to. Brand new motorcycles were out of reach for most people, so they settled for used imports, what Nigerians call tokumbo. because that's all they had access to. But Chukuma, he saw opportunity where others saw limits. He began importing parts directly, then moved to assembly. And by the 1990s, he'd launched one of Nigeria's first motorcycle companies, slowing the flood of used imports and creating jobs for people in his community. But he didn't stop there. With cash flowing from the two-wheeled business, he scaled up. 4 wheels, bigger vision. A true Nigerian car company. Fast forward to today, Innoson Vehicle Motors is headquartered in Anambra State, Chukwuma's home base. And unlike many who moved to Lagos for the clout, he stayed rooted. His factory, built close to the rural village where he grew up, now stands as a symbol to all, but the youth especially, that you don't have to leave to build something real. Here, they fabricate, assemble, and ship cars. The company claims that up to 70% of their components are sourced or manufactured locally. Their current lineup includes the IVM G80, a full-size SUV with unmistakable G-Wagon energy. It packs a 3-liter turbocharged engine and puts out around 250 horsepower. The IVM Granite, which is their mid-size pickup offering, think Ram meets Ranger, both in terms of size and appearance. Powered by an Isuzu-sourced 2.5-liter diesel, puts out about 140 horsepower. And the IVM Karis, a commuter sedan aimed at the average Joe, a Corolla competitor. 4-cylinder engine, 150 horsepower. And the growth isn't stopping at the border. Innoson has already begun exporting vehicles to Mali, Sierra Leone, and Ghana, marking the early signs of a broader West African footprint. It's still early, but the momentum is real. From bootstrapped bike hustler to Nigeria's automotive pioneer, Innoson Chukwuma's story isn't just about business. It's a blueprint for what's possible. Just an hour flight from Anambra, we touched down in Lagos, not just Nigeria's largest city, but the most populous city on the entire African continent. It's a chaotic, electric fusion of Wall Street, Wakanda, and a little bit of Fast and Furious. And tucked into the madness, one of Africa's boldest rising names in auto manufacturing, Nord Automobiles. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard the name Nord, I assumed that it was short for Nigerian Ford. Turns out I was wrong. According to the founder, Oluwatobi Ajayi, Nord is drawn from the word for north in several European languages. It symbolizes direction, movement, ascent, a perfect metaphor for the brand itself. Toby, as he's known, has been obsessed with cars since he could walk. As a toddler in the 90s, he'd tag along with his father to his dealership, Squadron Motors, one of Nigeria's top Peugeot dealerships at the time. His childhood was bathed in the scent of engine oil, the chatter of mechanics, and the soft glow of polished chrome under showroom lights. But his path to the auto world wasn't direct. Like many Nigerian parents, his father believed in discipline through education. So Toby was enrolled at the Nigerian Navy Secondary School, a no-nonsense institution built on structure, grit, and leadership. From there, he studied agricultural and farm mechanization in university. It might sound like a detour, but it wasn't. When you grow up in the developing world, you learn to align your dreams with your environment. And Toby's mission never changed. Solve real problems, build real machines, serve real people. After graduation, he entered the Mercedes-Benz Nigeria program through NYSC, the National Youth Service Corps, a kind of mandatory civic internship for college grads. From day one, he stood out. Most of his colleagues were 10, even 20 years older than him. But Toby moved fast. He rose through the ranks, earned Employee of the Year, and was put in charge of the Sprinter division. Under his lead, market share jumped from 1 to nearly 8%. He toured Mercedes plants across Europe and Asia, saw the machinery, the systems, the precision, and somewhere between the factory floors and the boardrooms, a seed was planted. If they can build it here, why not us? In 2014, backed by investors and belief, he launched JetVan, Nigeria's official distributor of Sprinter vans. But even with a solid product, the market stalled. People weren't buying. Why? Price. Duties, taxes, shipping. The math didn't add up. The average Nigerian was priced out. So once again, like Chukwuma before him, Toby asked the harder question. Why should Nigerians only have access to secondhand cars? And in 2018, he answered it with Nord Automobiles, a proudly Nigerian car brand, by Nigerians, for Nigerians. The early days were brutal. COVID nearly broke them, but they made it through. Today, Nord runs 2 dealerships in Lagos with plans for expansion. Their current lineup, the Nord Tank, a mid-size SUV gunning for Tacoma and Ranger territory, the Nord A7, their premium executive sedan, and the Nord Max, Urban, and Flit, a family of crossovers, shuttles, and minibuses tailored for public service and business fleets. But what sets Nord apart isn't just the lineup, it's the mindset. Toby once said, "I want people to see Nord and feel proud. Not because it's cheap, not because it's flashy, but because it's theirs." And that's the real thread here. From farm mechanization to Mercedes boardrooms, from Jetvan to Nord, he never stopped believing in Nigerian potential. And now, he's building something that proves it. Now we fly west to Ghana, the land of cocoa, Idris Elba, Stormzy, and Vic Mensa. And yes, second best jollof rice. Sort of kidding. Not really. But beyond food, music, and flavor, Ghana is also home to one of Africa's most original and most misunderstood car companies. Enter Kantanka Automobile. Founded in 1998 by Kwadwo Safo Kantanka, it's easily the most eccentric and polarizing brand on the list. And his background could not be further from the textbook CEO profile. He wasn't groomed in business. He didn't come through engineering. He came from the church. In his early years, Safo was obsessed with machines and anything hands-on. He trained as a welder at Ghana's Technical Institute and worked at Volta Aluminum Company, one of the top industrial firms in the country at the time. But in the early 1970s, his story pivoted. A spiritual calling pulled him toward ministry. He founded the Christo Asafo Mission, a faith-based movement that exploded into a global network with reportedly over 150 branches. But his obsession with science and technology never left. If anything, it fused with his faith into something else entirely. He started small, a soul music zealot, the likes of James Brown included. He found his aim by experimenting with circuits and building speakers and amplifiers by hand. A passion project for himself gradually expanded into a small business, patronized by those in his community. Then came the leap. By 1998, he and his team weren't just tinkering. They were building cars. The first Kantanka saloon was crafted in a wall-less shed on a rural Ghanaian farm. Basic hand tools, homemade molds, no CAD, no CNC. They cast the engine block themselves. Just faith, fire, and grittiness. It took them a full year to complete that car. But they did it. By the early 2000s, production began scaling. And in 2007, they unveiled the Onantefo. Then came the Omama, a diesel 4-cylinder pickup with 150 horsepower. Built not for showroom glamour, but for the roads locals know all too well. Today, Kantanka still operates out of Accra, modestly, but steadily. Their cars may not make international headlines, but their greatest export? Belief. There's a lot to admire here, but it's also fair to say that Kantanka's image is complicated. Some critics, like a 2020 piece in Jalopnik, claim the brand is fronting for the Chinese manufacturers, using knockdown kits to avoid the steep import tariffs placed on fully built vehicles. The implication? That the patriotic optics are just a smokescreen for tax dodging. But here's where it gets messy. Kantanka's own website acknowledges their partnerships. So does Safo's son, who's spoken publicly about the strategic support. It's not exactly a state secret. So what's the truth? Maybe it's exactly what it looks like. They're fronting. Maybe it's something else. A mutually beneficial agreement where the Chinese get tariff relief and the Ghanaians get the game. A fast-tracked education in how the business works. From supply chains to manufacturing systems, a live, fully immersive apprenticeship. The article's framing leans more towards sensationalism than substance. That said, the optics are not great. The Kantanka brand is known not only for its cars, but for some of its more eccentric inventions. Some of these include an exoskeleton, the Glitz Walker, airplanes, tanks, and helicopters. Now, in my opinion, the issue isn't with the inventions themselves, but with the intention behind them. Some claim that these are innocent, fun creations produced by Kantanka's R&D department, displayed at their annual science and technology fair. Others claim that these items, like the tank for example, are, quote, on par with the best in the world. Now, if you're just trying to inspire and entertain people, that's cool. But if you're marketing this as a legitimate part of your model lineup, people will look at you sideways. I just think there needs to be some transparency regarding what it is that you actually do. Gimmick-free African brands are already facing an uphill battle to be accepted. So I just don't think Kantanka is doing itself any favors with all the extra accoutrement. But that brings to mind a quote by Teddy Roosevelt, one that's even more relevant in this part of the world than most realize. It is not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. And that's the thing. Kantanka dared to step into the arena when no one else was even suiting up. Go back to that dirt floor shed. Watch the old footage. Young Ghanaian builders, welding, shaping, smiling. This wasn't PR fluff. These weren't pity jobs. These dudes were creating. And even if the cars weren't perfect, what they built was possibility. Give a young man in a rural town tools, guidance, and a purpose. You're not just building machines. You're building identity, agency, pride. The branding needs help. The site needs a total teardown. Some of the designs? Yeah, definitely out there. But they dared to try. When no one else in Ghana was even thinking about launching a car company, they were already making one. From scratch, on dirt, with fire and will. Today they still operate, still produce, still dream. Other brands might be sleeker, more polished, better funded, but Kantanka started the race. And for that alone, they've earned a place in the story. Our next stop, Uganda. Roughly a 10-hour flight from Ghana. Yeah, Africa is massive. And deep in East Africa lies a story that caught even me off guard. Because unlike the garage-built brands or ministry-backed missions we've seen so far, this one started in the classroom. It's 2007. A group of engineering students from Makerere University get an invite. Join the Vehicle Design Summit, a global project led by MIT and hosted in Turin, Italy. 30 universities, one mission: design a green mobility solution for the city of Delhi, India. What they came up with was visionary. An app-controlled rental system for shared electric vehicles. Locate, rent, drive, drop. It was Zipcar meets bird scooters, years before either was mainstream. The Ugandan team's assignment? Build the vehicle's low power and data communication systems. This wasn't just academic, it was the spark. When the students came back to Uganda, they weren't satisfied with ideas. They wanted to build. In 2008, the university launched the Center for Research in Transportation Technologies, or CRTT. Mission: create African solutions to African mobility problems using green energy. The first challenge: build a car. The results? Kiira EV, a sleek two-door hatchback somewhere between a Honda CRX and an early Volt. 60 horsepower, 60 miles per hour, battery, motor, converter, done. No, it wouldn't win Le Mans, but for a student-built prototype in 2011, it was electric in every sense. And who showed up at the public debut? None other than the leader of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni, who took the wheel himself. Not long after, the government made it official. Kiira Motors Corporation would be a national enterprise, and the dream got bigger. Next came the Kiira EVS, a full-size GT coupe that looked like a cross between a BMW 4 Series and a Hyundai Sonata. Sleek lines, clean symmetry, surprisingly refined for a team with zero design pedigree. But in 2016, reality set in. The company ran a feasibility study and decided to pivot from sedans to buses. Not as sexy, but smarter and scalable. Impact over ego. Since 2016, Kiira has completed a state-of-the-art vehicle plant in Jinja with a focus on hybrid and fully electric buses. Production officially began in 2021, and while the scale is still small, they've already delivered buses to Uganda's public transportation system. Proof that this student project has grown into a national player. From academic brainstorming to factory floors, Kiira isn't just building EVs, they're engineering belief. A different kind of origin story. No hype, no influencers, just students, a vision, and the slow grind to make it real. And if you listen closely, you get the feeling that they're not done dreaming. Our last stop takes us north, to the Mediterranean coast of Tunisia. 12 million people, ruins older than Rome, sun, sea, and one of the most eccentric car brands on the continent. Welcome to Wallys Car. Founded in 2006 by two brothers, Omar and Zaid Guiga, Wallys is what happens when you mix wanderlust, nostalgia, and the right amount of gearhead delusion. Yeah, at first glance, their flagship does look like a shrunken Jeep Wrangler. But that's only part of the story. The Guiga brothers spent part of their childhood living on a boat, sailing through the Polynesian islands of Wallis and Futuna. And everywhere they went, these tiny, candy-colored Jeeps just kept popping up. Parked outside beach cafes, lined up near docks, boxy little toys with real engines. One night, they passed an older man wrenching under the hood of one. They stopped, and full of childhood curiosity, they asked way too many questions. After a while, the man cut them off and introduced himself. Jean-Francois Grandin, owner of Dallas Jeep. Built on a Renault 4 chassis and powered by Peugeot and Citroën parts, the Dallas Jeep was a French island icon. Lightweight, stripped down, full of personality. Over 20 years, they only made about 5,000 of these things. But the Guiga brothers, they were hooked. With John's blessings and a few tips from the source himself, they decided to build their own. In 2008, they launched the Wallys Isis, a Tunisian-built buggy with a 70 horsepower Peugeot engine. Lightweight, manual, an instant icon. Then came the Iris in 2017. Slightly upgraded, still unapologetically weird. But that's the point. Wallys isn't trying to impress car journalists. It's not trying to lap the Nürburgring. It's trying to make you smile. Simple, rugged, manual, one engine, but 60 interior and 100 exterior color combos. Yes, really, 100. This isn't for everyone, but the people it's for, they'll go hard for it. Think VW Beetle, Mazda Miata, Suzuki Jimny, Wrangler. It's not about speed, it's about presence. Because most cars today, they're just appliances. Built not to thrill, but not to disappoint. Fridges on wheels. Useful? Sure. Memorable? Hell no. But the Iris? It's a car that invites you into the moment. Top down, winding roads near Cape Town or Mombasa. No rush, no pressure, just vibes, sunlight, and a 5-speed manual transmission. You're not going anywhere important, but you're smiling anyway. And in a world full of stress, noise, and copy and paste SUVs, that might be the rarest spec of all. So let's talk. If it's not obvious by now, my biggest issue with most of these brands is this. A lot of these are either rebadged Chinese cars or knockdown assembly kits in disguise. And look, in my opinion, if you're going to advertise that your product was made in your country, then it should be designed, engineered, and built in your country. Not just painted and renamed. It should feel like yours. But here's where I also play devil's advocate. Rebadging isn't new, not even close. The Isuzu Trooper became the Acura SLX. The Fiat 124, reborn as the Lada Zaguli in the USSR. The Toyota 86, shared with the Subaru and Scion. Even the Chevy Trailblazer shared DNA with the Saab. And there are endless examples that I haven't listed. This isn't an African thing. It's an automotive thing. It's a business move, a survival tactic. So no, rebadging isn't the sin. The sin is the lack of transparency. Take Innoson, for example. They claim that their cars are 100% made in Nigeria, that everything is done in-house. But scratch the surface and it gets murky. Same chassis, same bodywork, same model already sold in China. I mean, Same model literally sold next door in Ghana. Now, I don't think these brands are trying to scam people. I don't think there's any malicious intent. But come on, man. People aren't stupid. They can Google, they can compare, and they can feel when something is off. If you're asking people to buy into a new brand, a new dream, then give them something that they can believe in. Because dreams require clarity, clean storytelling, cohesion, simplicity, especially when you're the underdog. All right, so let's address the elephant in the garage. Made in China. For a lot of people, that phrase triggers a mental image, and maybe even a guttural response. Cheap plastic, fake electronics, Wish.com disasters, toothbrushes, flashlights, tube socks. But here's the plot twist. China leveled up, quietly, relentlessly. From knockoffs to nuclear, from brooms to BYD hypercars, from fake Game Boys to gigafactories. We're just slow to update the software in our heads. Slap a Japanese badge on it, we call it quality. Slap a Chinese one on, we call it cheap. Even if it's the same damn thing. The difference? Not what it is, but what we believe it is. Same machine, different story. And that's the game these Africans are playing. Perception. Not just logistics. Not just manufacturing. Perception is the product. Truth is, these founders aren't naive. They saw a gap. They took the fastest, cheapest path through it. They used what they had. They partnered with who could help. And in doing so, they gave people access to cars that were once unreachable. They created jobs. They planted belief. And belief? That's a powerful seed. Let's not forget, Porsche's first cars were modified Beetles. Hyundai didn't build their own engines until the late 90s. Even Toyota started by licensing Western designs before finding their own voice. Everyone starts somewhere. These African brands, they're still in training wheels mode. But that doesn't mean they're not moving. Do I want more originality? More African design language? More locally sourced innovation? Naturally. And it's coming. Some of these companies, like Kiira and Kantanka, have signed between 5 and 15-year roadmaps to gradually wean off foreign dependence. That's the real goal. Homegrown industry, African engineering. Until then, if a 10-year-old kid in Accra or Lagos sees a car with a logo that means something to them, if it sparks a dream, that's a win. Because cars aren't just about getting from A to B. Their identity, their expression, their belonging, even if it's subconscious. And yes, some of these brands are still rough around the edges, still figuring it out. But what they're building, that's something worth watching. Because this isn't the end of the story. It's the ignition. In Africa, she's getting ready to drive.